and welcome to the OnFARM podcast. It's Anna back with you again this week. I am sitting not too far from home, actually, in a lovely farmhouse kitchen that belongs to Louise Elder. Louise is one of the directors of RHASS, and she has kindly provided her kitchen as well as some absolutely delicious scones for us to have a chat about the society and its work, and specifically what's been going on to celebrate the 240th year of the society. So I'm also joined by two staff members from the society who will introduce themselves shortly. But we're here for a chat. We want to dig a bit deeper and tell people a bit more about the society and all of the work that it does, and share some of the passion that everybody around this table has for the various projects and campaigns that go on, sometimes behind the scenes, but more often in the public eye. So yeah, I think let's introduce ourselves, and then I've got a series of questions that I'd love to ask you. But more importantly than that, it's a conversation, and we just want to all chip in and talk about why we're so enthusiastic about the society and what it does. So, Louise, I might pick on you to introduce yourself first, if that's okay.
Yes, so I'm one of the trustees, as you said, a director of RHASS. I have been since around 2017. And in those years, I've become operational at times for the Royal Highland Show as Chief Steward of Food and Drink. But at the moment, I'm most interested because I was elected to the Executive Committee, and I've seen a different side of the society. I'm loving the different projects that we get involved in and the decisions that we have to make, which I'm quite passionate about.
Thank you. And I'll go to Ali next. Ali, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hello, I'm Ali Caulfield. I'm the Director of Advancement for RHASS. It's a very grand title. What does it mean? Nobody really knows. But basically, I stay in the background and make sure that the society, the show, everything that we do is sort of pushed forward into the public light, and that our charitable remit is carried out across Scotland.
Advancement. That's a very positive title. I like that.
Yes.
Really good. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Annie. I am the engagement manager at RHASS. So I work very closely with Ali and the 240th celebration campaign and everything that we've done in the last sort of 9 months has sort of sat underneath my remit and sort of helped push different stories forward. I joined the RHASS a year and a half ago, but I've become very passionate about everything that it stands for, and I grew up not so far from where we're currently sitting as well, so constantly been surrounded by agriculture for most of my life, but never really been in it too much. But it's definitely something that's hugely passionate.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about it. I don't know if I said earlier, but we're in East Lothian, where I live and where Louise lives, so I've known Louise for quite a long time, actually. Been in this lovely kitchen before, talking about different things. Now, I'm going to ask first off about the strapline, RHASS's strapline. But I think actually it's probably a question for all of you, because you'll probably have different answers. The strapline for RHASS is realising Scotland's agricultural ambitions. Now, that could mean different things to different people and be interpreted in different ways. But can you each maybe in turn tell me a little bit more about that strapline, what it means, and the ways in which RHASS works on a practical level towards that kind of bold and audacious goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can break the strapline down. For me, the realising part's really important, because the synopsis that I have is that we have been doing the same for the last 240 years of realising ambitions, but we probably haven't really spoken about it in a loud enough voice. I think within our community, we talk a lot there. We have connectivity. You know, Anna, as farmers, we talk about not just our ambitions, but some of our challenges. So we want to turn the challenges into ambitions and goals, but we're on the ground hearing what they are. But if we just let them drift, then there isn't the chance for a change. So I think the realising part is for us to listen to the voices. So the voices of our community, but there's the voices of the directors, and the directors are replicated, I found, just over the years in all the regions, in our 8 regions. So in East Lothian, I feel I have a connection with someone who's in Nairn or the Black Isle or Strathclyde. I have the same conversations. Now, I may get to have those conversations with them through my family, for example, but this is really when you're a member and a director of RHASS, and you may go to events, one of the biggest being the Highland Show, you have a chance to discuss the business side. What can we do? What can we change? So I think the realising for me is very much listening, but using RHASS as the platform for the change.
Yeah, and I suppose, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I suppose as you meet people from all over the country, you realise that yes, you might each have slightly different challenges and ambitions, but actually there are probably many that are the same for all of you, and that you're all ultimately working towards the same ambitions, albeit, slightly varied. Would that be true?
Yes, there's a commonality, but the challenges could be different. At the experiences for me, through being an arable farmer are different from livestock. But I can really appreciate, having had livestock too, just small amounts, but I could appreciate the challenges. If you're a pig farmer, I've really learned about all the various challenges. And our conversations start, if we are in a meeting, sometimes they start about the challenges of the prices of gas, or the electricity. It doesn't really matter. Or how has harvest gone? It's gone quite badly. In fact, it's not even started. But we all have that commonality. But we also, I find, are driven to succeed through the challenges. And that RHASS can identify those significant challenges. In geographical terms, yes, there are quite differences. Sometimes there's isolation, well-being in some areas is very different from East Lothian, where we're almost a commuter belt. So there are many more activities. I can see that, but measured, we can either celebrate what we're doing really well, showcase what we're doing well, but also look towards those challenges that we can meet and have an impact.
Mm-hmm. And so from your perspective, Ali and Annie, as members of the staff team, what's your take on this, the last 2 words then of the strapline, which is agricultural ambitions? How do you see that, almost not from an outsider's perspective, but as non-farmers, how do you see that, and how do you see RHASS playing a role in realising those ambitions?
Thank you very much for taking the very easy part, Louise, and leaving the difficult part for us. For me, RHASS has been around for 240 years. So when the group of individuals got together in the Tontine Tavern in Edinburgh, the issues facing agriculture then are the same as what's facing agriculture now. We all live in Scotland. We know it is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. The landscape is part of that, part of the crown jewels. That landscape is created by farming. It is created by land management, livestock, planting. And what we as a charity, a 240-year-old charity, what we need to do is we need to bring agriculture back to the fore, because over the last few years, agriculture is seen as the big bad guy causing all of these issues. But actually, agriculture is part of the solution. And we as a society, to be able to be here for 240 years and be relevant, and to be relevant for another 240 years, we need to start putting agriculture back there, food production, primary food producers, and have them part of the conversation.
And we're going to come on to the kind of the educational side of this in a little while, and how the contribution that RHASS makes towards, I suppose, helping non-farming members of the population just to understand a little bit more about the farming and the countryside and what it delivers. By the way, if you hear pitter-patter or any little noises, it's Harry the dog. He's asleep under the table at the moment. Looks happy as anything, but he might start to move around. So if you hear that, that's what it is. And I suppose the other thing that I should point out just before we ask Annie that same question is that one of the reasons why we're here around this table is because as a podcast, the OnFARM podcast, we've been working with RHASS on a series of podcasts as part of the celebration of the 240 years. So if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our more recent episodes, because we had a panel session that we recorded at the Highland Show. We had 2 episodes whereby we squashed in as many voices, 50 voices actually, although I haven't counted. We squashed in as many voices as we could into 2 episodes of getting a snapshot of everybody at the Highland Show and what they were doing and why they were there and why they love it so much. We also had a lovely story with another farmer from close to here called Willie Logan, who just, again, another kitchen table chat where he told me his life story, which was absolutely fascinating. And we've got more episodes in the pipeline as well. So that's why we're here, is to work with the society to do what Ali said, really, or to help to do what Ali said, which is all about bringing farming to the forefront, telling the positive stories and talking about these ambitions and how we can meet them. But Annie, I'm not going to let you away with not answering that question. Agricultural ambitions and realising them, what does that mean to you?
Well, having gone third now, I suppose I talked about, joining RHASS a year and a half ago and about being passionate about it. And I think that's certainly something that you find throughout the majority of the staff team at RHASS, is that we're all very passionate about what we do. And I suppose that's taking a lot of the things that the directors will bring to us through the different committee meetings and I suppose looking at RHASS and what it was set up to do, and looking at our charter and really looking at how we can help progress that. And I think that's, it's essentially joining all the little pieces together and working with the different people across Scotland and different people across the industry as well, and really trying to do exactly what Ali said, is bring it to the forefront, but also just how we do that, because it's not a simple task. There are so many people within the rural and agricultural community anyway, and I think I suppose at RHASS it is that there are 50 people within the staff team, and everybody is very enthusiastic and very passionate about helping to provide that platform and helping to help however the way we can, really, to do it all through our professional.
Yeah, I think it's very important as well to, when we talk about realising Scotland's rural and agricultural ambition, is we need to speak to lots of different audiences. So we need to speak to that rural audience, we need to speak to that farming audience, but we also need to speak to the public audience. And sometimes in our roles that will not come across the way. We'll get some stick because we're speaking to the townies. And what do we need to do? Well, actually what we need to do is we need to educate them. So we'll have a question later on education. We need to educate them on what it is that happens in rural Scotland. Up until COVID, not many people ventured off into the countryside. COVID happened, then everybody went to the countryside, and that brought with it lots of additional issues. Now that we are back to normal, people have moved away. They still have that sort of understanding of what happens, but they don't actually know what goes in and out. So everybody's complaining about how horrible the summer has been. But what they don't actually understand is how devastating the summer and the spring have been to farming communities up and down the country. Yes.
It hasn't just ruined people's dog walks. There's a lot greater impact. And I suppose to lead on from that, why do you think it's so important that we as an industry, and RHASS as part of that, give the wider population that understanding about agriculture? Because we could just get on with what we do best quietly and let them get on with what they do. Why do you think it's so important that we tell these stories and get these messages out there?
I mean, I think I have I had slightly backstory, but I was coming back from London at the weekend and accidentally booked a train where it stopped in Newcastle, so then had to get on a rail replacement bus. In the bus,
That was painful.
and the bus did not come up the easy route around the A1. It came up
every station.
It just came up through this, like through Northumbria and then through the Scottish borders, and everybody was on their phones taking pictures of hay bales that was in the bus, and they were like, "Oh, I wonder what like they grow," and I was like, "Well, I know, but I'm not going to start this conversation."
Stand up at the front of the bus.
You're a captive audience.
So I think like that, and I think, you know, people see it, and you know, that's something that we last year when we did the harvest Thanksgiving at St Giles, and we worked with St Giles on that, and we had the combine harvester outside, and it's something that the majority of Scotland, urban population, like people from cities, people from towns especially, see all these machines in the fields on a day-to-day, and it's really sort of showcasing, and it's that understanding. They know it's there and they know that it's happening, but they don't know why.
Yeah, yes. I mean, that's a really good story, isn't it? I'm still disappointed that you didn't.
I know. I'm
stand
really
up
sorry. I should let everybody down.
No more than me.
Tight display, but then you wouldn't have had your seatbelt on, I suppose.
No, I know.
But yeah, that's. I think that's a really, really good point. Is that the Harvest Festival kind of highlights it, that if we want people to have an appreciation of where their food comes from, we can't just expect them to have that appreciation without a bit of a nudge from us. And I think, well, my personal view is that everybody involved in farming has a certain responsibility to do that. Not everybody wants to take on that responsibility, which is fair enough. But then that's where RHASS and others come in. Have you got anything to add to that, Ali? That the deep why as to why? Because it's the purpose, really. It's purpose to what we all do, isn't it? That why.
It is, and I'm going to give a wee plug here to the 50 Voices podcast at the show, because there's two young men on there that summed it up very perfectly in one line, and that was: no farmers, no food.
What are your names and where are you from?
Owen, I'm from Falkirk.
I'm Felix and I'm from Hopedon. So
You're both farmers, are you? Right. Have you been to the show pretty much every year of your life, do you think?
yes,
And why do you come?
it's fun. It's good for us to all the farmers to meet up and have a show dedicated to us.
Yeah.
It brings awareness around farmers all over the world, all over the globe, and all over Scotland. And obviously, quite a lot of us have tough times sometimes. So. Yeah, could inspire someone else to start a farm or something like that.
Yeah, because you see the other side of the road and you see how stuff is actually done.
No farmers, no future.
Yeah, you are good. You should be presenting this podcast, not me.
Yeah, no farmers, no food.
We didn't even ask them to say that, did we, Dave? Producer Dave's here as well, and they were brilliant guys, actually, and you could see the enthusiasm in their eyes, those two guys, for farming and food, and yeah, they're brilliant advocates. We need to try and find them.
Yeah, I think they were on for 45 seconds, and everything they said just hits home. One of the reasons why we need to speak to that public and urban audiences, because of the impact that Scottish agriculture has on Scotland economically and, as I said, on the landscape and food security. It is one of the key issues that will be affecting us over the next few years. And if we don't all come together and all speak out, we will become forgotten. We will become that bad guy. We'll just get pushed. We'll get marginalised off to the side. So by coming together and having these conversations and speaking to those different audiences, it's key to be able to secure that long-term security and lifeline to Scottish agriculture.
Louise, have you got something to add?
It was just again about the 50 Voices. And I think they were, I don't know if it's the same two people, but two young people from Livingston. And I heard their voice.
St. Margaret's.
It was St. Margaret's. And they said, I have a little bit more respect for farmers.
Yes.
And again,
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
My name's Abdul Rahim.
My name's Romeo, as in Romeo and Juliet. I live in Livingston and I go to St. Margaret's Academy.
So it's your first time at the show, both of you. You've come on a school trip. Now you're here. Do you think it is a good idea?
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of things to do.
So where have you been? What have you seen? What have you looked at?
Look at tractors. What else do we look at?
Cars,
motorbikes. I think I have a bit more respect for like people that like have like do these kind of things, because I don't really like think about like the process that goes into like making food. Often I kind of just like eat my food and just
Eat
like,
it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think I have gained a bit more respect for people that work in like farms and stuff like that.
And obviously that was a visit to the Highland show that they were experiencing, but it's all tied up with that, isn't it? Because that's what we try and showcase and celebrate, the best of what's happening in agriculture. That point of education is not just to say, oh, that's barley and not wheat, or that's a hay bale and not a straw bale. It's not that. It's just what Ali said. It's that having, for Scotland and its economy, and you have a share in that, really, because we are custodians and we do want to listen. We do have our own voice, of course, but if we can somehow meet a little bit more than having standoffs, I think then it's a much better environment, all round.
And I suppose, we've talked, it's the 240th anniversary. I think that's something to be celebrated anyway. But what it does is provide a hook, I suppose, and an opportunity, something that we can hang everything that we've talked about. It gives you another reason to come up with some brilliant ideas to get all of these messages out. So there have been various campaigns and events to celebrate 240 years. One of them is obviously the reason why we're involved, which is 240 years of stories. So telling as many stories as we can, including the 50 amazing voices that we had. And like you, Louise, I think that those two from Livingston actually impacted me the most, because they weren't from a farming background. They'd never been to the show before, and yet they went away with a greater appreciation, and ultimately they are an example of what we want to try and do. But yeah, tell me more about the 240 year celebrations and the various campaigns and events. There's Hide and Sheep. There's obviously the year of stories, 240 years of stories. Annie, you had the short straw and had to answer last on my last question, so I'm going to let you have the limelight. Tell me about everything that's gone on, how you felt about it, why it's been done, anything you want to tell me, go for it, because I think we will all know something about it, but not nearly as much as you do.
Oh dear. Asked me to talk about my feelings. We talked a bit about Flock to the Show, which was the campaign that Ali ran, or we both helped run last year, and Hide and Sheep essentially was a slightly smaller, fluffier sister to Flock to the Show. So earlier this year in Flock to the Show we had 38 fiberglass sheep last year, and had different causes that were attached to them that were about the rural and agricultural industry and why people should know about them. This year we went down, and it was a real life size sheep. If you have not seen Flock to the Show, then you should have a look at that as well. And this year we went with a slightly smaller 12 centimetre size fluffy sheep that could be hidden across Scotland. So we hid just under 2,000 sheep across Scotland.
I didn't even realise it was that many. What a logistical challenge that was.
It was much easier than 38 full-sized 120 kilo sheep. I can tell you that.
240 sheep in our 8 regions, so it's 1,920 sheep.
Right, yes.
So, we're in a big fan of the 240, 12, 24, all denominated.
So you're improving your math at this point as well. Yeah.
You're giving away our secrets here.
So we worked with a lot of the same partners that we did last year, and attached to them were 5 sort of key things that happened on a farm during spring. So we did it over this sort of summer, the Easter holiday, block, just to have it as something that families could go out, enjoy, find some sheep. Although we did find that there was a group of women who were going around and finding
They were
them
traveling
all.
around the whole country trying to find as many as they could.
Yeah.
It was
Not
almost
sure
like
if that's
Pokemon. They were trying to catch them
spirit
all.
of it, is it?
Well, I mean, hopefully they read the 5 facts and are far more knowledgeable.
Maybe they learned something.
But and from that, we've also began working with yourselves and with other partners as well to sort of draw out as many stories as we can, and really sort of trying to look at the RHASS as a historical body, as a charity, and all the different things that RHASS has done over the last 240 years. One of the reasons that it was set up is to help rural communities and agriculture across Scotland, and it's about a lot of the infrastructure that RHASS in hundreds of years ago did help put throughout Scotland, but then also trying to tell those stories of today and of the people. And we've talked about 50 Voices, and we've talked about different producers as well, and the importance of why we have that sort of circular economy, why it's important to buy local produce, why Scotland has this amazing groupings of produce that are just fantastic and right here on our doorstep. And I suppose it's just really, you've talked about the why, and that's kind of what this project has been about, is why RHASS exists and why we need to continue to exist.
Yeah. Ali, anything to add about hide and sheep? I'm a bit gutted that I didn't find one myself, actually. It seemed like a great campaign for social media, particularly because it was, it's a really good opportunity for people to find something, take a great photo. Were you pleased in terms of that and the awareness that it was able to kind of help raise, and maybe to a different audience than normal? I don't know.
So we built on the back of Flock to the Show, which was a huge success. I think we had over 55 million touch points with that campaign. Hide and sheep was the next step. What we saw is we used locations up and down the country, over in the islands. We saw, and those locations saw an increase in footfall during those 2 weeks in school holidays. We timed it with school holidays around the country. Interaction on social media was huge. We had over 10,000 people taking part in Hide and Sheep Trail at this year's show. Part of Hide and Sheep was the opportunity for people to win a VIP experience. So we had 8 families from our 8 regions attend the show and receive a VIP experience, getting in ring, handing over rosettes, being treated like kings, queens, and little prince and princesses over the weekend, which was brilliant to see, because it was opening it up to that new audience, the audiences that we spoke about earlier on, and being able to get those points across. As Annie said, there was 5 key points. We worked with our educational charity RET, where we sort of used their resources and took people into classrooms and really built that engagement up. So yeah, it was a huge success. It was one small part, or is one small part of what is a year of events. The whole thinking behind that is taking our last 240 years, sitting down, taking stock, taking those stories from individuals, because we all know that we all like to tell stories, we all like to communicate in different ways. So bringing them all together, taking bits from our history, so the funding of road networks, the funding of the Weights and Measures Act, RHASS funded part of the Union Canal way back when. So there's lots of things, pulling out little tidbits that we can then put into an exhibition and take it on tour in the coming years. So it's been a lot of fun. We at RHASS are a very small team. Our directorship is quite big, but also quite small when it comes to trying to deliver projects on this scale. So it's something over the last 3 years that I've been very proud of as an individual and as a charity, that we've been able to have that reach and we've been able to have that impact.
And I suppose that kind of connects to something you said earlier, Louise, that probably some of the stories that you're unearthing are very time bound and only relevant to, whenever they occurred. But actually, I bet, and, we've found the same thing, some of the people that we've talked to, you unearth stories or you speak to people that are, decades old or longer, but actually some of the same themes emerge, so some of the same opportunities, the same challenges, the same enthusiasm, And I find that really interesting because farming changes, but also it doesn't change in some ways. And I think it's really important to document that and have that going forward so that hopefully, Dave, this is Dave's responsibility, producer Dave, to sort this out, but hopefully in another 240 years, there will be the technology that the people who are running RHASS will be able to listen to all of this archive that we've created.
No pressure, Dave.
I don't know how they can do that. They'll have some sort of chip implanted in their brains or something. But so they can look back and understand the archive that you're creating in the same way that you've been downstairs in the big house at Ingliston looking through the archive that was created over the last 240 years. Sorry, I digress. Louise, what's been your take on 240 years and all of the different events and campaigns that have been implemented to celebrate that?
Well, I find they're immediately current. So I think the hide and sheep for me and for Flock to the Show, it's a very much attainable for the younger audience. But at the same time, it's a reflection on our lives. So there is an enjoyment there in terms of, rearing sheep, livestock, or celebrating that, the animal husbandry. But for me, it goes back to even in this farmhouse in the 1880s. Thomas Elder was a member of RHASS. He was a director as well. But I found out recently when we were asking about our own family histories. So my husband's great-great-grandfather, who came here from Carnwath, he became a tenant farmer just on our neighbouring farm, which we now own, was also a member. Not a director, but a member. And I looked into some more of the archive, which is basically a bureau in Hugh's office, which is stuffed with lots of paperwork.
That'll be sounding familiar to a lot of people listening.
And I got quite excited because we found that he had invented some brakes on his farm, but they were actually railway brakes. But it was just his way of transporting things around the farm. And so he used, I think, RHASS more on an academic side. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about the tavern originally, well, we were in the era of, agricultural revolution. We were learning so much about husbandry, how important it was in realising, food production. The corn exchanges exist and the corn was brought. We learnt more about practices and the different types of wheat and what gave the best production. But for me then, if you think they weren't going to colleges and universities, they didn't have that. They had each other. So they had the society. So I think it's all about the knowledge. So I think the hide and sheep, it speaks of the 240 years, to be honest with you, because we're telling, the young people, to get excited about, animals, but then the respect that farmers do have for them and how they wish those lives, with us on the farm. And then I realised that in my own family goes back 6-7 generations. It's that succession, continuity that gives you that. It's not that long, the 240 years.
So, of course, we hate to keep you in suspense. Who am I kidding? We love to keep you in suspense so that you come back and listen again next week. But that was just the first half of our conversation. We ended up talking for far longer than we expected, about way more than we expected. So the second half of that conversation will be available next Monday for you to have a listen to. So, as always, this episode of OnFARM was brought to you by the team at Scene&HerdPR. We specialise particularly in building brands and building websites and, of course, creating podcasts. You may also have heard of our On Record project, which is an audio memories project where we work with families and businesses to save and preserve memories and stories for posterity. So you can find out more about that project at www.onrecordmemories.co.uk. This particular episode was edited by Antonia Gospel, The reason why I mention her is because she is part of the Multi-Track Audio Fellowship, a wonderful initiative, and I think that Antonia's done a great job. On that note, we will leave you in suspense, and you can listen to the second part of the conversation next week.